mute yourself. We'll surely get an opportunity to speak and chat whenever there is a chance. So let's begin now. Good morning again, good afternoon and evening again to everyone. And of course, a very warm welcome to each one of you who's joining us for this very, very important and timely global briefing on phase 2 of Youth 2030, the UN Youth Strategy. I'm here, Naveen Gautam, who's representing stakeholders group on communities discriminate on work and decent, and also the global focal point at major group of children and youth for CDWD. Okay, going to the background, in 2018, we witnessed a groundbreaking movement when the United Nations launched the Youth 2030, the first ever system-wide youth strategy, which was a bold step, recognizing that young people are not just beneficiaries of development, but key partners, leaders, and drivers of change. And since then, more than 60 UN entities and 132 UN countries teams have taken up the call, integrating Youth 2030 into their work. And we have made extensive progress. Governance systems are in place, scorecards are tracking our steps, and engagement with youth has deepened across many UN mechanisms through various toolkits as well. But we also know that to some extent, the pace has not matched that much urgency of our times. Of course, there are many challenges for this, and the challenges are growing, and so must our commitments. And that's why earlier this year, we entered into a new chapter with the launch of Youth 2030 Phase 2. This next phase isn't just a continuation, it's an acceleration uh, developed through a collaborative process led by Youth 2030 Joint Working Group and endorsed by high-level steering committee. And this new phase builds on past lessons, responds to gaps, and places young people even more squarely at the heart of global development efforts by youth networks. And of course, not to forget the major part also played by the civil society organizations and youth networks in ensuring meaningful participation from grassroots and marginalized communities as well. And more importantly, this means that the youth are not just subjects of strategy. They are not here just for tokenism. They're actually leading it. They're representing, they're leading it. And young people continue to co-lead task teams, shape discussions around the Youth 2030 focus groups. And of course, we have major group of children and youth and United Nations Youth Office who has kind of driven this movement from grassroots to the global level. And of course, with establishment of UN Youth Office and evolving digital and intergovernmental landscape, we are also at the moment of a great opportunity where we will talk about and also inform and engage with you on what's actually was phase 1 and what's new in phase 2. And also hear your perceptions and experiences from diverse contexts, and most importantly, co-create pathways for a youth inclusive, impactful, and implementation of Youth 2030. And without wasting much time, let's begin, and let's try to be more interactive, honest, and forward looking towards this session, because the future is something which we as youth are building and not in isolation. So let's quickly begin, and I'll also request my co-moderator Jonathan to quickly go through the ground rules. Jonathan.
Yes. So hello also from my side. I'm Jonathan from ICMIO. It's like an umbrella organization for the major youth movements around the world. And I will quickly go through our ground rules. So all of you, I see already a lot of faces, are welcome to turn on their cameras as long as you feel comfortable. Would be great if we are able to see your full name and also the organizations, and you can also put your pronouns to your name. As already mentioned, please take sure that your mic is muted during the session. So yeah, we have no interruptions during our talks. And I really want to encourage all of you, if any question comes up during the sessions, please feel free to text it in the chat. We have people who moderate the chat and take on those questions. And we have at the end a long part to ask all those questions, and you will also have the chance to speak up. And yeah, you can also check the translations via Zoom. And last but not least, please be aware that the whole session is recorded and also uploaded afterwards. And I think it's always good to remind you that be respectful, have like a respectful language and behavior. Don't conduct any hate speech or similar content. And yeah, also keep in mind that we have also children and people under 18 here. So thank you so much. And I will hand over now to Ola for some small icebreaker. You're still muted, Ola. She has some internet and electricity problems already. So maybe I just invite you to scan the QR code and yeah, answer the first question, and we will in parallel already share the slides in Menti. So the first question is where you're all from. So we already saw it in the chat a bit, but maybe you can also put it one more time in the Menti.
All right, maybe we will give you about 1 minute to scan and access the Mentimeter, and then we will start sharing screen for Menti. In the meantime, Ola, if you're able to hear us, let us know.
Very nice. So we see we have quite a diverse group here from all over the world. You can also still go to menti.com and put in this code in case you didn't have the time to scan the QR code yet. Perfect. Then I guess we can go switch to the next question. Gori, can you maybe?
Sure, okay. It's great to see so many young people and all of you joining us from such a diverse uh, group of geographical diversity that we see here. Let's move on to the next question. What comes to your mind when you first think of meaningful youth engagement or meaningful youth leadership? It can be one word, it can be a phrase, anything that what comes to your mind. All right, we see empowerment, purpose, youth led. We see power, diversity. I think diversity speaks for our previous question when we saw all of you from such different places. Accessible funding, partnership. I see progression, hope, initiative, seat at the table. There's just so much. Wow, this looks so beautiful. And hopefully we can have a screenshot of this at the end of this, kind of remind us where, where we're all coming from. Collaboration. Great. I think Naveen and Jonathan, this looks amazing. And at the same time, if all are still here with us, please feel free to, unmute and join. I really want to keep this Mentimeter open for like the next 10 minutes to see the different inputs that we get. But I do realize that we need to move on with our session. As beautiful as this looks and as energizing as this icebreaker has been. So yeah, over to you, to our hosts and co-hosts.
Thank you, Gauri. Thank you for this. And yeah, indeed, like so many responses, if you can see, are already on our screen. So, and of course, thank you for sharing the screen, Gauri. I'll just take over from here. Just a quick look at the team which we have today. This is our team. I won't go into the details, but these are the people who have done all the hard work in terms of background work and also representation. And most of all of us representing major group of children and youth. And then we have team from United Nations Youth Office as well, which will be part of the session uh, throughout the discussion which we are having today. Without wasting much time, I will quickly introduce Felipe because Felipe also has to leave early. So we will try to ensure that we have him. So Dr. Felipe Polier is also the Assistant Secretary General for Youth Affairs, United Nations, a patrician from Uruguay, who was appointed as the first ever Assistant Secretary General for Youth Affairs in December 2023 at the age of 32. And he leads the UN office focusing on integrating youth perspective into global policy making. Felipe, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Naveen, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to everyone in this call. Thank you also to Jonathan, to Ola, that unfortunately she was with some internet issues, but I'm sure she would have a chance also to participate. And thank you to Gauri also for the icebreaker. And I'm very excited to be with all of you. This is a very large, almost 500 young people joining from different parts of the world, a very diverse and I'm sure ambition and inspiring group of young people, you know. As I was introduced, I was appointed in 2023, in December 2023, as head of the United Nations Youth Office, and I have the honor and the responsibility to work with a bunch of amazing professionals alongside youth organizations, alongside colleagues that work in the United Nations in different parts of the world, and alongside also many members of governments when it's about accelerating and advancing the commitments of the United Nations when it's about young people. As you might know, and if not, I would like to share it with you. The United Nations Youth Office was officially established in December 2022. And the way of establishing this office was by a resolution of the General Assembly, which is the main body of the United Nations system. And the establishment of the office for us marked a significant milestone when it's about the global recognition of young people as key partners in achieving sustainable development, in achieving peace, and in achieving the protection of human rights. And the resolution, and a resolution it's about a process of bringing governments together into common priorities, established that there's strong international support for a more coherent and a more coordinated way in how the United Nations system engages young people. So in practice, what this means? It means that our team, alongside many different partners, is working to drive interagency, multi-stakeholder, and intergenerational collaboration when it's about not only delivering for young people, but delivering with young people. When it's about elevating the voices of young people and promoting the rights and the support of governments, of member states of the United Nations in the implementation of youth-focused strategies. You know, the UN Youth Strategy, the one that now we are going to present the second phase, and we are going to share what this second phase means, was launched by the Secretary General Antonio Guterres, the head of the United Nations, in 2018, so almost 6 years back. And it's an umbrella framework that guides how the United Nations system works with and for young people. So it's about articulating a necessary vision for a world in which the rights of young people are realized and young people are empowered to reach their full potential. You know, many of you in this Mentimeter, when you were asked about meaningful youth participation, you were referring to it as empowerment, you know, and that's what this strategy is about. So after 6 years, we've seen great progress, you know. We still believe it's not enough. And as Naveen was reflecting, you know, We are working in how to meet and how to, address those gaps. But the truth is that we have made progress together. And today, over 60 UN entities, 60, all 132 UN country teams are actively implementing Youth 2030, which means that they are implementing initiatives for engagement of young people, for working with national governments when it's about the development of youth policies, and when it's about programming not only for young people, but with young people. So in practice, this means that the UN is working alongside youth-led organizations, youth-led networks, and movements worldwide when it's about advancing our shared agenda. So half mark to 2030 in this 2025, it's clear that we are not moving fast enough. It's clear that the world is off track when it's about meeting the global goals, the sustainable development goals. And the COVID pandemic some years back, the cost of living crises, the active conflicts we are all suffering, climate change, and other interconnected crises are disproportionately affecting young people. Structural barriers, underinvestment, and the need for greater political commitment continue to limit that we are able to deliver on these concepts, on these ideas you were sharing when it's about meaningful youth engagement. So it is really against this backdrop that I'm pleased that we have responded with the recent launch of Youth 2030 second phase, a phase that is planned to be implemented between 2025 and 2030, that was built once again together with many of you. And this next phase is an opportunity to re-energize our efforts, to accelerate the implementation of the strategy at the global, at the regional, and what is most important, at the national levels. And I'm happy that you will hear more details about the phase throughout the next hours. So allow me to close and to wrap up thanking all of you that have been part of this journey. Thank you to all the youth networks that have played a vital role when it's about accelerating the work of the United Nations, and especially, trying to have impact in our world, So on my capacity, on my role as head of the United Nations Youth Office, I look forward to continuing to work alongside youth networks towards our common ambition, which is really to making that the UN's works with and for youth over the next 5 years can be accelerated. Thank you very much, and pass you the floor, Naveen and Jonathan.
Thank you, Felipe. That was indeed very powerful. And I would now request my co-moderator, Gauri, to take over. Gauri.
Thank you, Naveen. Happy to take over. Just want to check if Ola is able to come in very quickly. Ola, are you able to unmute? If not, I can continue from here. All right. I think I will continue so we don't lose any more time. Thank you, Felipe, for your amazing start to this briefing. I think to hand it over to our next session, we really want to touch a little bit upon what really is Youth 2030 and how it came to be and how the UN really works with youth. I know Felipe already touched upon it, and we'll also talk a little bit more about that with our next two speakers. And then we'll also maybe invite them on here right now, which is from the UN Youth Office and from MGCY, the Major Group for Children and Youth. We have Sudha Balakrishnan from UN Youth Office and Same Kamel, who's one of the OPs from MGCY. Firstly, I'd like to invite Dr. Same Kamel, organizing partner of the Major Group for Children and Youth. Same, could you please share your reflections on the youth networks involved in the Joint Working Group, to share a brief overview on what Youth 2030 is and how we've been working with and for young people. And then followed by Sudha, you can also take over and both of you can walk us through the next few steps for Youth 2030's phase 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gori, Jonathan, and Naveen for the excellent moderation. So I just want to shed the light a little bit on what Youth 2030 is. How did we reach where we are today? So Youth 2030, as you all may know by now, is the Secretary General's strategy on youth. It was launched in 2018, and it provides a very important framework and guidance for joint action and holding the United Nations accountable, all the entities of the United Nations. Phase 2 was just launched this year in 2025, and it's governed by two entities. First is the High-Level Steering Committee, and the second is the Joint Working Group. High-Level Steering Committee is chaired by the chair of the strategy, which is the UN Youth Office, or the Assistant Secretary General for Youth Affairs, Dr. Philippe Paulier, and another youth co-lead, which is usually one of the main chairs of the Joint Working Group. What is the Joint Working Group? Joint Working Group is a task team that includes young people in conceptualizing and implementing the Youth 2030 strategy. Formal self-organized youth constituencies facilitate broader youth engagement for the respective priority areas, as the terms of references reflect. Next slide, please. So Sudha, handing the floor over to you.
Thank you, Sameh. Good morning, colleagues, and really happy to be here with you all today for this session. I'm Sudha, and I'll quickly walk you through where we are with the strategy and where did we start from. So as is being already pointed to, we have crossed the midpoint of the strategy. We are halfway through the 12-year strategy. We've made good progress, but there are several gaps. And the reference to this, you can see what really are the gaps in the first interim review report that's linked in the slide. And there's clearly a need to accelerate. Let's move forward, please. So what is the progress that we have collectively made? So the first one is what was a 14-page strategy has now been implemented system-wide, across all 132 country teams. And as it stands now, the count is 64 UN entities. This is as of today. Robust foundations are in place. There are governance mechanisms, there are coordination mechanisms, there are accountability structures in place, and there is periodic tracking of progress as well happens. There's a lot of support to governments at all levels that we've seen. There is in support of data and providing data and evidence, policy support, technical assistance for different thematic areas, capacity building support, programs and projects, innovations, monitoring, evaluation, and most importantly, meaningful youth engagement in national processes, including the VNR processes. At large, there has been a great push to empowering youth-led organizations, amplifying youth voices, capacity building, and funding across different levels. There has been internally a surge in youth engagement in the strategic moments when UN shapes its work. For example, the 5-year cooperation frameworks, which is the primary document for the partnership between the UN in countries and the governments, several youth-led projects and support for meaningful youth engagement in policymaking. We've seen a real change here. There has been an improved collaboration and coordination across the UN entities that work on ground as well. Under the RC's leadership, there have been several uptick in joint programs and then more funding going in terms of several different areas of funding. Next slide, please. However, huge gaps remain, and this is a journey. And so the progress has been steady, but has been slower than desired. There is significant variations are also seen across countries and across regions. Some regions are performing really well. Some countries are performing really well against the benchmarks that have been set in the strategy, but there are others which are not yet there. Very importantly, there are no institutional mechanisms within the UN system to track investments on youth and understand what is the resource gap for pushing the agenda. And importantly, also, the meaningful youth engagement in strengthening national policies is happening, again, patchy across the globe. Support for youth-led ideas and solutions and initiatives are happening all across, but really require scaling up and strengthening. And within the UN, policies and processes for making youth engagement truly meaningful also needs to be stepped up. Another two areas that we are also seeing, which really need a push in terms of young people within the UN's workforce and and improving internships, this really require much more effort and these would be focus areas for the strategy for the second phase. And then we've also seen that when there is leadership pushing the agenda forward, we've seen a great run. And where there isn't, then there needs to be much more effort coming in from the technical teams. And so strengthening accountability at the leadership level is also a gap as it stands now. So the phase 2 comes up. Next slide, please. The phase 2 comes up in a time of changing context, challenges, and opportunities. As we all know, we are off track to the 2030 goals, but there are several opportunities for us to push forward, starting from the SDGs policy brief on meaningful youth engagement, the UN 2.0, the recent commitments underlying meaningful youth engagement in the Pact and in several other global summits, advancing work on the 6 key transitions for SDG acceleration. The establishment of the new UN Youth Office itself is a huge push for the agenda. Technology also will help us to go to scale, to get innovations in, and also see how we can do bigger, better, and really meaningfully. Next slide, please. Back to you. Sameh.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Sudha. Just before I start, again, I just want to tell you guys that I'm super happy with the number of attendees that we have right now. It's close to 700, and it's been fluctuating over 700 for the past few minutes. So this is very impressive. Diving in, I just want to do a quick comparison between phase 1 and phase 2. What worked, what needed to be improved, and so on. So let's get into phase 1. What worked in phase 1? First is the structure itself. Youth 2030 task teams were co-led by youth constituencies and UN agencies. And a notable aspect was that the space was given to designated constituencies most relevant to the themes and work of the joint working groups so that they can facilitate targeted engagement. For example, the guidance task team during its work in 2020-2021 involved youth constituencies across various thematic priority areas. Similarly, the Disability Task Team engaged the youth group from the UN Disability Stakeholder Group, and the Young UN was involved also in internships. Another success was the attention given to youth priorities at both the country and UN entity levels. The momentum from the strategy helped drive other forms of youth political engagement across sectors. For instance, the youth engagement at the UNFPA Joint Working Group on sexual and reproductive health rights and climate followed the same co-leadership model as the youth strategy, which is amazing. Similar collaborative efforts were seen in other interagency mechanisms, such as the Environmental Management Group. And third, maintaining momentum and coordination across the 6 years of the strategy is a significant achievement. Many strategies across the UN system tend to come and go, but not us. The fact that this strategy continued to deliver consistently over multiple years is amazing. The strategy secretariat also provided regular briefings to various partners, including member states, youth networks, and UN agencies. In terms of what could have been done better, firstly, translating the outcomes of the Youth 2030 and process itself to a broader audience, not just the young people, but the wider UN system and civil society organizations could be enhanced. Secondly, It is important that the strategy remains relevant to ongoing global trends and emerging issues such as the post-COVID world and political changes globally. Third, we wanted a strategy to spur action that means going beyond reporting process to actually shaping progress and taking action. Scorecards alone were insignificant or insufficient. Proper mechanisms should be in place to avoid reducing accountability to a simple tick-off exercise by member states and UN entities. Finally, before we move on to the next slide, more can be done to involve broad range of youth in the strategy. This briefing is one part of the process. Next slide, please. Okay, so now as we move to phase 2 of the strategy, which Sudha and the team will share more about, I'm pleased to highlight how youth networks were involved in shaping the phase 2 itself. First, youth groups had limited but direct engagement in the interim review of Youth 2030 done as part of phase 2 engagement. Second, more than 15 youth constituencies representing a diverse youth-led organization variety, platforms, and movements took part in the retreats of the Joint Working Group in October 2024. We provided more than a 50 pages document of written inputs. You can see it on the screen, the QR code where you can scan and get to the document. This document included suggestions on governance and other things. Youth constituency was then involved in subsequent versions of Youth 2030 Phase 2 document, including results frameworks. While the progress has been made, more needs to be done. Particularly, we believed that the implementation of the Pact for the Future should have been more closely linked and done through Youth 2030 structures rather than another separate and similar process for it. And I hand it back to Sudha.
Thank you, Sameh. And let's move to what the phase 2 is. You've heard a bit around what happened in the first 6 years, and now let's move to the phase 2. Can we pull up the slides, please? Are you able to see?
Not yet. 1 second, Naveen.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, there it comes. Okay, so the ambition for phase 2, the UN system will champion a bold transformation in its engagement with and for young people, especially given that the foundations are well in place. Young people in all their diversities are active agents of change, contributing to peace and security, driving sustainable development, asserting their human rights, and meaningfully engaging in the decisions that impact their lives in the future. And the UN's commitment is to push the agenda at all levels, to live, breathe, and actually work on working with and for youth through the phase 2. Next slide, please. So the phase 2 is still part of the Youth 2030 strategy, and it will retain the 2 pillars of the strategy, which has functioned pretty well. One is the priority areas of the strategy, which is actually the programmatic areas. And then the second pillar is the foundational area, which is the internal transformations. So the priority areas of the strategy, just as a reminder, are organized in 5 priority areas. The first one is a cross-cutting engagement, participation, and advocacy. The second one is around informed and healthy foundations, health, education, linking to the third one, which is around economic empowerment, decent work, entrepreneurship, social protection. All of these are bundled in here. And then the fourth one is around youth and human rights, and fifth is around peace and resilience building. Climate is a cross-cutting theme all across and will remain so. And the foundational areas are more, again, around how the UN works with young people, how it sets the bar on knowledge and innovation, and how it invests and catalyzes solutions and also serves as an accountability leader. So the phase 2 retains the 2 pillars. Let's move forward, please. So the guiding principles for the youth strategy will remain the same, and meaningful youth engagement at the core of the strategy. Rights-based approach, leaving no one behind, is again one of the key tenets, and the gender equality and empowerment of women and girls will remain as the core guiding principles. Next slide, please. So what are the strategic priorities for phase two? Looking at all the gaps that we had, what we outlined, we worked together, the joint working group and the extended joint working group, which came up with these six strategic priorities. One is push the agenda forward on empowering youth through meaningful youth engagement at all levels. Second is boost SDG implementation with and for youth at all levels, especially at the country level where change needs to come. The third one is around investing in knowledge and capacities for working with and for young people. And then the most important piece is around unlocking resources for the youth agenda. Fifth is around transforming the UN's workforce and organizational culture so that it truly becomes multi-generational in terms of its workforce, and not just one generation which is leading the one or two generations which is leading the work of the UN, and then overall strengthening accountability systems. Next slide, please. So this is a visual graphic of the results framework that shows the interconnected nature of some of the outcomes and the outputs, as well as the overall impact. We'll quickly get to this shortly. So it's a small picture, but this gives you the bigger visual of what are the key components. With that, I will pass it on to Godfrey. Next slide, please. And to Godfrey.
Thank you. Thank you. So yes, as already indicated on the slide that has just been put, you'll see that the results. One of the key innovations for the phase two implementation is to have a results framework that can be used to track progress as far as the Youth 2030 achievements are concerned. And in that, we clearly try to show what are the key outcomes that we would like to see in terms of the acceleration phase, and what are the key sort of outputs that will contribute to it. There are three key outcomes that is envisioned. One, based on the six priorities that Sudha highlighted. One is really focusing on empowering youth and youth organizations, networks, and movements to advocate for their rights and have access to opportunities to influence policies and decisions that affect them. Now, this is critical as far as the meaningful youth engagement is concerned, as far as boosting SDGs is concerned, but also unlocking resources. The second is really focusing on strengthening political commitment from governments and increasing financing, but also enhancing capacities to accelerate progress towards the SDGs with and for youth at local, national, regional, and global levels. So at all levels. And this is critical, as we already indicated. The SDGs are far behind as far as the progress is concerned. And so the idea is to see how the young people can boost the SDG acceleration here through the different channels, including financing. The third outcome for the acceleration phase is really strengthening UN commitment and accountability for working with and for youth, and transforming the workforce to be fit for the future. And so this relates very closely to the priority areas related to the work for rejuvenation and internship, and as well as the accountability within the UN system. So again, these are the three key outcomes for the acceleration phase. If we can move to the next slide. And so this is really the results framework in a way. It's summarized. So you have the three outcomes, but for us to achieve those outcomes, we need key outputs to be able to see those outcomes towards the end of the acceleration phase. So you'll see that outcome one has around 6 key outputs that needs to be accelerated for us to see that the progress that we are looking for. And it is really focusing on organizational capacities, advocacy, and outreach. It's focusing on meaningful support as far as meaningful youth participation is concerned. It's focusing on knowledge generation and data, as far as outcome one is concerned. It's also focusing on knowledge exchange, which is very critical because, again, one of the things that we have learned is that in some regions, some countries have made progress, but how can we cross-fertilize that knowledge with other parts of the globe in order to have? And the other thing is also on the training and capacity building, which is really having access to learning modalities that can contribute to as far as the phase two acceleration is concerned. So outcome one has those 6 key outputs that we need to show progress in order to see the outcome that we like. On outcome two, there are quite a number. There are around 10 key priorities that needs to be really worked on as far as the outputs are concerned, and it's focusing on SDGs acceleration. It's also focusing on incubating, but also scaling at youth-led ideas and solutions, on advancing sectorial and cross-sectorial efforts. And this is critical because, again, the youth work and the youth needs are not sector specific, but they have quite they interlink to different sectors, and so making acceleration again more effort on those areas will be important. Data is critical. We need to show to what extent what are the key gaps, what are the key needs, using evidence as far as the young people's needs are concerned. We also need to make sure that the knowledge generation, but also carry out strategic analysis in order to be able to make informed decisions, whether it's on policy issues, whether it's on programming, and also areas to do with the influencing policy programming at policy issues at the national level. And advocacy, general advocacy, and not forgetting the funding, which has been a critical gap as far as phase one implementation was concerned. And so those are 10 key outputs. Once we make some efforts and progress on them, we hope to see the outcome two, which is envisioned by 2030. And then finally, on outcome three, there are again around 7 key outputs that needs traction in order for us to see the outcome that we like to see, focusing on really having internal policies and strategies to attract, recruit, and retain young people, on scaling up programs and initiatives that at the UN, in the UN system to attract young people, or providing opportunities and improve the fairness and quality of internship programs, and also more broadly ensuring that we strengthen our accountability within the UN system. Same has already indicated, for example, that this shouldn't be just a compliance or a tick the box exercise. And so this is why the results framework for phase two is very critical, because it helps us to clearly show to what extent we have been able to make progress. Now, in order to translate these results framework into tangible performance tool, you'll see that in the document, in the phase two document, there are clear indicators that will, for each of the outputs, there are clear indicators that we need to track progress with. And those indicators towards the end of the phase two implementation should translate again into the outcome indicators that are also indicated there. So this is a new innovation as far as the phase two is concerned. And these indicators will be translated into what we call the updated scorecards that will be used for tracking progress by the UN system, both by the UN entities and also the UN country teams. So over to you, Sudan.
Thank you, Godfrey. So quickly touching again on the governance and coordination, this has come up quite a number of times in terms of the acronyms that you probably already have heard it a number of times: HLSC, the Joint Working Group. So let's quickly look at how this whole governing piece happens. So the high-level steering committee will continue, and it is composed of UN entities at the ASG level, along with youth networks, MGCY, ICMIO, and the Young UN. And this is the broader steering group that takes decision under the leadership of Felipe Polier. And then we have the technical leadership group, the joint working group, along with their task teams, which actually are the machinery to run the commitments in the strategy moving forward. And again, here again, brings together entities and youth networks. And as Samay said, several entities which are outside the normal structures of the high-level steering committee can be co-opted in terms of the working group at this level. And all of this actually are brought together by the team that you saw today. And this whole thing is structured within the youth office. So this is how it will continue to remain even for the second phase of the strategy, but the joint working group and the task teams are the place where more people can come in, more people can have their voices heard, and also co-shape and co-design some of the products that are going across the UN system. Next slide, please. So quick touch on the youth office, and I think this will also come up in the next slides. As Felipe said, this office is very new, but it brings together the engagement and advocacy on youth issues and work across all pillars. Then meaningful youth engagement is the core of the office, and system coordination and accountability is governance structures are placed in here. And then there's a whole set of activities that are focused around socioeconomic opportunities for youth. And there are some flagship initiatives as well on the Youth Compass and youth mental health. You'll hear more in terms of opportunities to engage soon. So with that, I think I pass it back to Samir. Can you slide over to the next one, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Sudas. Thank you. I'll request Yash to come in. Yash, who's also the global focal point for the SPI platform at Major Group of Children and Youth. Yash, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Naveen. It is so great to be here with everyone together this morning and discuss how we can continue the impact and work collaboratively across UN system and also with youth networks. My name is Yash Tadimala. I am a PhD student in computer science. I am one of the 2 global focal points for the Youth Science Policy Interface platform. I am a part of the Youth Marker Working Task Team, where I work closely with Godfrey, who spoke earlier, Sudha and Reese from Medina from the UN Youth Office. And the team is focused on how we can map and track resource allocation across the UN system, both at the country level and the entity level on investments in the youth agenda. And the youth representative from the coordination group in the task team was myself, and I also work closely with the coordination team to make sure that the youth inputs go into the working task team. We meet once every 2 weeks, so it's a lot of meetings, and we are making sure that we're able to channel youth voices across the world into the process. And it has been really great to be a part of the process and understanding how the UN system works, because oftentimes a lot of youth networks don't have the opportunity to be a part of strategy. So really grateful for the collaboration that everyone brings to the table in making sure that the Youth 2030 agenda is achieved. And happy to connect with anyone who is interested in the process.
Thank you, Yash. Back to you, Sudha.
Okay, great. That was Yash talking on one of the engagements that we've had, but there are more to come. And wanted to give you a list of few things that are there. There will be more coming up, but the first one I wanted to pick on and connect back to the outline that Godfrey presented is on the results framework, and we need to look at the second generation of Youth 2030 scorecards, so to say. And there is already, people who are interested, please let us know. And this would also be a joint area of work where things will be reviewed together and built again for the phase 2. The second one is around updating the toolkit. We already have co-produced a toolkit in the phase 1 of the strategy, but of course, some of these are redundant and some of them need to be replaced, but there are few which are really good. And then, of course, we need to, with all the tech developments now, so how can we make it more real time in terms of curation and how do we move things forward? That's the second one. The third one is where Yash is already engaged in, the youth marker. So we have actually set up a whole design of a marker system, and that is going to be pilot tested and roll out across the whole UN system. And it's great that it was co-shaped not only by the UN system, but also with young people as part and parcel of this whole process. And of course, we are going to do the joint launch of the Youth 2030 Progress Report on the sidelines of the HLPF. So whoever is going to be here in New York, please do let us know. Finn from the team is the focal point for this. And so this is also a great place to engage and also, be part of the whole journey as well. A few more things in terms of opportunities to engage. Next slide, please. So building data and evidence around meaningful youth engagement at the national level is also a piece of work that we are trying to move forward. And this is also linked to the pact implementation, but also several different things. It's linked to the strategy, but it's also linked to everything that we want to push forward. And that's a piece of work that Bianca is leading forward, and we'll hear more. YPS, we have a whole piece of strategic research that is going on with a focus around Middle East and North Africa. So those of you who are interested and wanting to be part of this journey, then do let us know. And then Reese is leading a whole piece around learning on the go, a micro-learning format for meaningful youth engagement and policy making. And then there are several flagship initiatives. We'll talk a bit more around the Youth Compass, which is around meaningful youth engagement. And there is already a lot of engagement with the Youth Blasts coming in from the MGCY. So there would be more. We'll talk a bit more on it. And then there are more in the pipeline around mental health and well-being as well. So with that, I stop, and I don't know. Okay. With that, I will pass it on to Finn for the toolkit. Over to you, Finn.
Thanks, Sudha. Hi, everyone. Finn here from the Youth Office. Love to share a little bit more about the toolkit work that we're about to begin this year. The toolkit is about collecting and curating up-to-date and relevant resources that reflect the phase 2 priorities. And with the advent of new technology, we're looking at, what that means for how the toolkit looks to make it both accessible, but translating access into implementation. So we're working with UN entities, UN country teams, governments, and young people on this toolkit, and working through a task team approach that is beginning this month. With that, I will pass it to my colleagues. And on MYE at the national level is Bianca.
Thank you so much, Finn. Oops, I see my camera is not working. Hi, everyone. My name is Bianca. I'm also from the United Nations Youth Office working in coordination and accountability. And first of all, thank you so much to everyone that is joining today's briefing. So around the strengthening evidence and data, we have one area of work which is around meaningful youth engagement at national level. The aim of this work is to identify different models, mechanisms, processes for youth engagement that exist at the national level to engage young people in policy-making and decision-making processes. We want to document good practices and then share those good practices to strengthen UN support to advance meaningful youth engagement at the national level. The geographical focus of this work is across all the United Nations member states, which is 193 countries around the world and across all regions. In terms of next steps of where we are with this work, we are working on a data tool to map youth engagement mechanisms at the national level. And then later on, we will develop this compendium of good practices and disseminate it. I'm the focal point for this work. So I'll pass it forward to the next colleague that will share about another area of work.
Okay, the next one is on the youth peace and security. This is Godfrey again from the UN Youth Office. As you know, peace and security is a key component of, I think the slides have gone off, but peace and security is a key component of the Youth2030 strategy. And so what we are trying to do is to try to generate knowledge to advance the YPS agenda. Really, there are two critical studies that are being undertaken right now. One is focusing on the youth inclusive peace processes, and the countries of focus is Libya, Yemen, and Tunisia in the MENA region, to try to understand how young people have really been involved in both formal and informal peace building processes. The second study is focusing on how YPS is being integrated into the Youth2030 implementation by the UN country teams, again in the MENA region. And the countries of focus that we like to see there is Tunisia, Iraq, Lebanon, and also Yemen. So those are the countries of focus as far as the study is concerned in the MENA region, to try to see to what extent YPS is being advanced in that region. In terms of next steps, we are at the stage of data collection right now, and also trying to do a desk review of what is already out there in order to understand on these two particular studies, the youth inclusion, but also YPS integration into the Youth2030 implementation. We hope that by July or August, we will have the full draft report that can be used to get stakeholder feedback and into the insights that will have emerged from the studies, and therefore thereafter try to work on see how best the recommendations from those two studies can be taken forward as far as advancing the YPS agenda is concerned. I am the focal point, so in case of further engagement on this YPS agenda, please do reach out to me. Over to you, Reese.
Thanks, Godfrey. Hi, everyone. I'm Reese, also from the UN Youth Office. And one of the key pieces of work that we are doing is in regards to one of the strategic priorities from phase 2, which you would have heard earlier from our colleagues, on advancing capacity and knowledge. And so this ties into our learning on the go. So we want to develop and build an open source micro learning curriculum for youth, governments, and the UN in regards to policy making and joint policy making. So this is going to include meaningful youth participation in advancing and accelerating SDGs. The focus is, again, youth, the UN in relation to our UN country teams and governments worldwide. So as we begin to develop this, we will be seeking inputs for the design of this micro-learning curriculum and the structure and the build of it from all focus groups that will be youth through youth networks that you are a part of, as well as our UN country teams and our government youth focal points as well. I am the focal point in the UN Youth Office for this work and excited to get it moving forward. So thank you. I will now pass it on to Sudha.
Great. So we come to the last bit in terms of the possible areas of engagement. There are more, but these are the big pieces that are moving currently. The one is on the Youth Compass, and many of you are already part of these Youth Compass, Youth Blasts discussions during the intergovernmental processes in and around. So the aim is to enable young people to navigate and shape policy making while at the same time catalyzing institutional transformation. That's how the Youth Compass is framed. So the focus is a range of people coming in from different sides: youth governments, the UN system, civil society organizations, private sector, academia, media, and several key stakeholders. Different aspects, different stakeholders coming in at different points of time to push the agenda forward in terms of meaningful youth engagement. And we are working together to finalize the concept note. Outreach and engagement is already started. And of course, there are huge partnership opportunities as well going forward from one intergovernmental process to the other, but hopefully for the regional and the national levels as well. So I'm the focal point for this, and please do reach out for any discussions, clarifications, or anything else that you want to know. With that, I will pass it back to, I think now it's you, Gratna. You?
Yes, thank you, Sudha. And just complementing what the Youth Office shared, I'm happy to present a very few engagement opportunities because there's a lot that is happening. And I'm one of the two organizing partners with SAME for Major Group for Children and Youth. So in the support of the various strategic priorities, so that's what the abbreviation SP1, SP6, and all of those things stand for here. There is a number of initiatives that youth-led constituencies, networks, movements, and organizations are doing. We're highlighting a very few of them, right? Like consider this like a very top 5, not top, but just like 5% sample of different work that is happening, as we wanted to present some engagement opportunities for you. So Major Group for Children and Youth would be leading a global stock-taking process on meaningful youth engagement that is connected with both the strategic priority 1 and 6 to stock take where progress has been made on youth engagement and where gaps remain. And most importantly, this is a youth-led process. We're planning to initiate this in September 2025 and culminate this with some kind of a stock-taking meeting on meaningful youth engagement, whether that looks like gathering a conference or whatever at the ECOSOC Youth Forum 2026. This was comprised of desk research surveys, focus group discussions, so you would hear more about it once September rolls in. This complements building sort of a broader gateway of various actors that are involved in ECOSOC Youth Forum. As you know, the Youth Forum convenes most actors across the UN system, including member states, UN agencies, youth-led organizations, networks, and also UN youth delegates. The second part that I want to highlight is that there are youth networks and constituencies taking action, especially around major moments, including commemoration. So some of those include, and this is directly related to strategic priority 2, some of this includes a week of mobilization in lead up to F54. That should actually read June 23 to June 30, which is part of the economic justice campaign and will comprise decentralized actions from young people globally. So this is being led by a consortium of more than 500 civil society organizations worldwide. For those of you that may be familiar with like climate movement, right? So this is similar to that and basically mobilizing action on the ground. We're also planning a 10-day activation period around International Youth Day, which would involve showcasing youth-led action. So not driving, but showcasing youth-led action on social media. And then 2 quick updates that our colleagues from UNCCD Youth Caucus and Migration Youth and Children Platform shared on what they have been doing through a My Land, My Rights campaign and some consultations that were held to directly interact with more than 800 young migrants across the globe. On the next slide, you would see another sample of some engagement opportunities. And one I want to highlight is Youth Blast series that Major Group for Children and Youth and various youth constituencies have been running for the last several years. And other virtual knowledge resources. And this is directly linked to the strategic priority 3 of the phase 2. Youth Blasts happen virtually and in person before key moments. This year, we already did different youth constituencies did youth blasts and such similar gatherings at the STI Forum, the Science Technology Interface Forum, DRR, Disaster Risk Reduction in Geneva, and where you see the image, the Youth for Sendai, those are young people in UN Geneva, just actually earlier this month. We also partnered with different actors, including UN Youth Office and DESA, for Youth Blast around ECOSOC Youth Forum and FFD4, which also was in partnership with Youth Compass. And we have an upcoming Global Children and Youth Conference for FFD4 organized by FFD4 Youth Constituency, FFD Children and Youth Constituency, my apologies, in Sevilla, HLPF, and much more. Some constituency-specific efforts, again, I don't want to verbatim read it, but Migration Youth Platform is doing a 3-part webinar series on decolonizing foundations of climate mobility. SDG 16 Working Group, Peace and Security Group, has been working on a YPS mainstreaming toolkit for negotiators, which would be a toolkit for high-level negotiators and government officials that are involved in conflict prevention and mediation, and is seeking partners. So if you'd like to work with them, their email IDs are here. From what we have mapped, there are more than 20 plus youth-led and youth-focused forums that happen every 2 years on global level. This includes groups like Conference on Youth and Climate Change, Youth Environment Assemblies, SDG 7 convening, such as the Global Youth Energy Forum, and also various initiatives like the forum convened by the Global Youth Indigenous Caucus for Indigenous youth groups, CDWD, and minorities, communities that are involved. And again, these forums are not like one-off conferences, right? They involve the year-long process that involves policy showcase, action showcase, etc. And final point that I want to mention on ensuring that young people and youth groups are represented across key interagency engagement mechanisms, which is directly linked to strategic priority 6. So youth are already part of some of the engagement mechanisms, right? Like when we talk about interagency, we are referring to structures that have various UN agencies involved. So for example, UN Energy, young people are already part of it. H6 Plus, which is the major health bodies like UNAIDS, WHO, NCD Alliance, and others. So youth actually are co-chair of the Youth and Adolescent track at H6 Plus. Youth are also participants of the Environment Management Group in the UN, and are part of convening the governance structures of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration Youth Task Force. The efforts are also underway to mainstream youth mechanisms more, youth-led representation more, and interagency structures like UN Water, UN Oceans, IASG, and other processes. I think a couple of examples that I missed include GCYPS and Compact, in which youth are directly involved in co-chairing and co-steering the work of those interagency/multi-stakeholder mechanisms. In terms of next steps, we have 2 key points that we'd like to highlight. So engage in the focus group on Youth 2030 that Naveen talked about in the very beginning, and also MGCY monthly newsletters. These are great avenues to receive information. We are actually moving to a bi-weekly issue, starting now until the until the UNGA, and then we'll come back maybe to monthly, or we'll reassess. The last newsletter was sent over the weekend, so it has over 22 different opportunities and engagement highlights mentioned, including those from constituencies, networks, and UN agencies. And we look forward to sharing more with you on that. Over to you, Naveen.
Thank you, Yugrat. I mean, indeed, so many opportunities, so many engagement, and thanks to Samay, Yash, Yugratna, he's Sudha and Godfrey, and of course we had Finland Bianca for explaining everything somewhere around how what was exactly about the phase 1, and then what exactly it's about, giving a broad overview of phase 2, and then the result framework and opportunities to engage within this. And now, before I give space to the floor to Jonathan, I would also like to inform you that recently ICMIO and MGCI have become partners, and I'm sure that will come up as a strong partnership in the future, bringing up more youth voices. So, Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So yeah, I hope you had all the chance to scan the QR codes, and now it's time for you to ask questions. So as we texted in the chat a few times, you can take the chance and ask questions in the chat. But you can also, like some of you already do, raise your hand, and we will then invite you to speak. And yeah, in best case, you already know to which speaker you want to ask your question, and otherwise we will try to find the perfect speaker for you. So I'm just waiting if there's some already questions in the chat, which will get sent to me. Otherwise, Otherwise, Gabriel from Brazil. I think I can unmute you. Does it work? Can you speak?
Hi, is
Yes,
everyone
we hear
listening to
you.
me?
Okay.
Hi everyone, I am Gabriele from Brazil. I am 29 years old and I am data and machine learning engineer. About this opportunity, especially the one Bianca has Zoe is leading. I want to ask you something. It's about the documentation. Where you put this information is like when you documentate the good practice is for everyone in the youth UN youth to see. And the other question is, how can I contact you so you can see my CV, because I'm really interested in this volunteer opportunity.
Thank you. Bianca, maybe you can answer. So share a bit more where the information is available.
Yes, thank you so much, Gabriele, for the question. Regarding the work on the national youth consultative bodies and meaningful youth engagement at the national level, we are at the early stages of the mapping process and documenting the good practices. When they are available, they will be available to everyone on our website, which is un.org/youth affairs. There's a lot of other information for opportunities for youth, data for youth and the work of the UN on the website. So I encourage everyone to go and check it out. If you are interested in contacting our office, I would also recommend that you reach out to us via social media DM. We're very active there, or using our generic email, which is youth2030@un.org. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I will hand in one question from the chat from Miyuki. I hope I pronounce your name right. She's asking, hi, my name is Miyuki Horuchi from Tokyo, Japan. Regarding the path forward implementing the strategy, are we going to have any regional hubs, or are there any ideas, something like that? Which strategy mean? The Youth 2030 strategy phase 2? I guess. So yeah, maybe somebody can answer. Are there regional hubs where people can engage?
Okay. Jonathan, I can take this question.
Thank you.
So the idea is not to create more and more duplicative structures. Miyuki, basically, we have a presence across 100 and through the UN system. They are available across 162 countries already. So this would be the first place of engagement. Apart from the regional offices that are already there. So there could, we will leverage the existing regional offices of different entities as entry points, but then, we will also have this work at the country level as well. So we don't plan to have any additional duplicative structures for the strategy itself, but working through the UN system.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Then we get one more speech. I see on my screen next, Navdeep Mola. I hope I pronounce yourself. I will try to unmute yourself. Yeah. Can you unmute yourself? Does it work? Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Nasid Ali. I'm from Tanzania. I'm the AI data scientist, machine learning expert, but also a software developer. Started from the age of 8. I've expertised almost for 11 years now, and among the achieved the award of Best Programmer of the Year in Tanzania. Firstly, I want to share some of my thoughts, and I have several questions.
I'm sorry, Nafid, because we have a bit a time problem. Maybe you can just share one quick question, and then we can take it because we are a bit running out of time.
Okay, my question was based on the side of digital transformation and technology. How will the UN Youth Office integrate AI, digital literacy, and emerging technologies into the Youth 2030 framework, especially in education, employment, and public policy areas?
Okay.
Also, will be taken to bridge digital divide, especially in rural Africa, where youth face connectivity and affordability issues? That's all.
Thank you so much. So maybe from somebody from youth office can answer what are your plans on AI and the impact, and what is maybe up there where also people can engage in this process.
Okay, so there are a few different things in terms of actions that are happening across the UN system. So there is the AI advisory group of the Secretary General. So there are several things that are happening in terms of shaping global AI policies that we are involved in. There are several working groups, and the inputs go into the process. There is also the Secretary General's envoy on technology, who also is pushing forward the agenda on different things, and we collaborate with them, bringing in a youth lens to these structures. In terms of actual action on the ground, there are several initiatives of the UN entities that come together. For example, there is the GIGA initiative in terms of the UNICEF, the Generation Unlimited, ITU, and several other big players who have, for example, one of the key things is around connecting every school to the internet. So there are several different initiatives across different areas. Then, of course, there is the whole AI integration across all walks of life, across all walks of our programming. That's also part of the UN 2.0 kind of work that is happening across. So, both in terms of efficiency, but in terms of reach and access as well. So there are several different components, and that would be a whole area of discussions itself. But the basic frame is that the UN is, through its 2.0, is fully committed to the digital transformation of its system, but also in terms of outreach and in terms of supporting national governments to take things forward. And one last thing I would say is that there are some joint initiatives to transform for SDG acceleration around digital transformation that also integrate young people in those work at all levels. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I see in the chat quite a few questions about people asking how they can engage with MCGY and also the UN Youth Office. So we will share the slides probably, but you can also always check the websites of both. They have a lot of events, and they also make it transparent how to apply for specific task forces and other consultative bodies. So I guess this is the best source, and I guess it will be the same. We'll get the same answer from Sude. Otherwise, you can add something there. But
So
yeah, sorry.
apart from the global outreach, I would also think that several of you are coming from different countries. For example, Tanzania, different countries that we saw across the map that you pulled together. So there is the UN office there, and they would have 10 to 15 different UN entities there. So that would be another important port of call for your engagement, especially for national level action. Of course, there are some countries which are the developed countries which may not have an office. It might be just a fundraising office in some of these areas. But, for the others, I'm sure there are UN offices, and they're all supposed to be part of the youth strategy and inputting in. So if you need any support in accessing or connecting, reach out to us at youth2030.org, and we'll be happy to connect. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Then next question, Naomi from ISW. Are you able to unmute yourself, or does I need to? Wait, I will do it. I will try. Okay, perfect. I can see you. Does it work? No? Yeah.
No, it's working. Okay,
Yeah, it's
sorry.
working.
You were
Perfect.
keeping muting me and muting me. Hi,
Okay.
everyone. My name is Noémie Plumier. I'm based in France. I'm working for the International Secretariat for Water, an NGO based in Canada, and we catalyze mobilization primarily of young people with the Global Youth Movement for Water. in the water SDG 6 space, more specifically. My question is it's to the UN Youth Office. Are you planning on having more of a coordinating role between all of the youth groups within the UN? So therefore, major group on children and youth, ECOSOC, UNEP, UN entity, youth initiative that you mentioned, youth council, etc., etc. Even the flagships initiatives, especially in terms of then transparency of those groups or what they do in terms of mobilization of young people, access to fund, etc., self-accountability, then it's part of it. And also joint efforts on transversal topics such as peace, environmental effort, climate, education, etc. And how do you plan then to engage with the young people who are not from all of this UN youth system people that I just mentioned, because it is very complicated for many youth groups to understand how to navigate in between this UN world and tracks, and they are often just facing the barriers of understanding how it functions more than not being able to participate, and engage. So just, those two questions. Thank you very much.
Great questions, Naomi. And just want to say that, we are trying to, this is part of the work of the Youth Compass that we are trying to look at, So this is the helping young people to navigate these spaces, helping them with capacities and knowledge and information that can be made available. And it's also not that, not that we will only have it at the global level. We will try to work with different structures at different levels, the UN, the youth networks that we already partner with, but also in terms of other CSO organizations that we partner with, as well as the governments, to actually make information available. And of course, we take pride in being accessible to young people all across the world who can reach us on social media channels, on channels and platforms that they are comfortable with. And, one of the key things, as I said, for the youth strategy is also we are very conscious that not everybody is connected, not everybody is in sync. So, the UN country teams, that is the 132, which work across, which have a presence across 162 countries, there is a whole push on leaving no one behind and leaving no youth behind. So the contexts are different. The groups that they work with are very decentralized, and they look at using locally useful tools and platforms that can help them reach. So it's very complicated, and but we're trying our best in terms of mobilizing at different levels and connecting at different levels, so that people who are interested, young people who are interested in understanding more, in getting to know more, and also wishing to engage, will have the opportunity and will have the space to do it and the support to do it. So that's how I would frame it.
Thank you so much. So one question from the chat was lessons learned from phase one, since it was slower than expected. What are the accountability measurements we are taking now to be more effective in phase two? Yes.
Okay, the phase one was, this was as it was framed, it was the first ever UN-wide, system-wide youth strategy. It was never done before, and we didn't have any foundations in place. We didn't have structures in place, and we didn't have governance and coordination mechanisms in place. So all of these have really set the foundations well, and there are existing accountability scorecards that are there, to look at progress. But what we also have understood very clearly is that there are places which are doing things well, and there are areas which are not yet doing well. So one of the key things that is still work in progress, at some point of time, it will all come together. We will have a peer learning network across to cross-learn to cross-learn across countries, cross-learn across regions, both aspects of working with youth, but also working for youth on the policy domains and programming areas as well. So I think these are all different pieces. So on one side, as you said, the strategic priority area 3 has a whole focus on knowledge and capacities. So we have different things to help move things forward, both in terms of toolkits, learning, micro-learning, different formats to push knowledge and capacities at all levels. And remember, the Youth Office is a convener to bring all of these areas together. But each UN entity have their own mandate. For example, UNESCO takes on education. UNICEF also has a large piece of work on education. WHO health, and peace and security, it remains with different agencies. So different things, each one has their own kind of knowledge portals as well, and the outreach. So we do think that it would be a good network approach and multi-level approach to actually see how best to learn, cross-learn, and move things forward.
Thank you so much. So I see still many hands up, and I also saw a lot of questions in the chat. I hope we will export the chat so people can think about those questions and maybe come back to you. But regarding time, we're coming to an end. So we will make also to end one last big group picture. So you can still join the picture, and then I will give one more time over to Naveen. Maybe he has some closing remarks.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you, Sudha, so much for answering all those questions on your side. It was quite a lot and spontaneous, so that was great.
And we'll be happy to, if there are questions coming forth as well, please do let us know, and we'll be happy to answer as many questions as possible over email or chat or whichever way. But happy to respond to so many hands up that are there.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. Okay. Kate or Finn, are you saying something for the picture?
Yeah, thank you. If you feel comfortable and if you're able to, we'd love if people turned on their cameras. And we will take a quick photo so that we're able to tell other young people that weren't able to attend that this happened. And we reached out and had this conversation. So this is your last chance to turn your camera on, and we will take pictures in 3, 2, 1. There are so many pages. Perfect. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you so much. So we will end with our last slide with resources, where you can also maybe we can share the screen again. If Naveen's still here? Otherwise, I will share it quickly. Yeah, we'll share. So we have a few more resources you can also consult and try to engage more. Let me quickly.
I've shared it.
Okay.
Share it. Yeah.
Perfect. And despite this, we actually came to an end. So we thank you all for participating, for asking so many questions, and especially also answering so many questions and give so much input. And really hope that you will. We saw already in the chat that you guys are connecting a lot, and hope you foster great communities. Yeah, over to you, Naveen.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I think you already have concluded this part, and of course, thank you for everyone for, I mean, 700 was it's a huge number. And each one of us took our time and had like a good, strong contributions you have given us. And as we wrap up, I also want to reiterate that the core ambition of Youth 2030 Phase 2 is to accelerate implementation and drive meaningful impact as well as representation. And this briefing has also, to some extent, we have tried to kind of ensure that the young people are informed specifically about Phase 2 of the strategy, while also thanks to Sudha and Samay, how they kind of ensure that we have a crucial recap of Phase 1 as well. And then finally providing a strong platform for listening to young people's perception for the strategy, and also how we can represent and collaborate more in this. And finally, while we had a discussion on how we can engage, find out avenues, and articulating possible ways forward for a truly youth inclusive implementation of Youth 2030. And of course, a sincere gratitude to United Nations Youth Office and everyone who was present over there, and other youth networks who are involved in the joint working groups for comprehensive overview of Youth 2030. And of course, bringing up again the major group of children and youth and international coordination meeting of youth organization ICMIO for the insightful reflections on Phase 1, for setting the stage for Phase 2. And of course, again, a special acknowledgement to United Nations Youth Office. And finally, to each and every young person, we will, like I repeat again, we were 700 over here. We are 700 over there. And I'm not sure, the number has gone down now, no doubt, but we were 700 over there. To each and every young person who's present over there, who has showed how energetic we can be. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for the great session, and looking forward to being in touch. And please do feel free to reach out at any point of time for anything that you might want to get to know. Okay, so that's youth2030@un.org. Please feel free to be in touch and look forward to working with you. Have a great day. Thank you so much, MGCY and ICMIO, for actually bringing this all together, and thank you, Finn, and thank you to my own team for making this possible. Have a great day, or a great night, or a great evening. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.